Hello, and welcome to another Saturday food support group. We have these Zoom meetings every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I just invite people to come and to share their stories because I've had so many people reach out to me in private messages and tell me their stories. And I just couldn't keep it for myself. I had to share with you all of the beautiful things that are happening when people break their addiction to sugar and carbs and processed food. And they get their brains back, they get their bodies back, they get their lives back. And they're just so excited that they can't wait to tell. And so I informed everyone that I would be recording these meetings, and I encouraged them that if they wanted to remain anonymous, that they can turn the camera off. But a lot of people they want to share. They want to share what has happened to them, and they're so excited about their new life. And then I also open it up for questions. If people are still struggling and they're still on this journey, that they can come and ask questions. But if you need more individualized care than just in a group like this, feel free to email me at innerclaritysystem@gmail.com, and I'll walk you through what it looks like to work with me one-on-one. All right, thanks. I hope you enjoy the group.
Good morning. We have another Saturday food support group. And today we are going to start off with Allie. She wants to share her story. So Allie, go ahead.
All right. Well, I have a long history of some different things. I developed irritable bowel syndrome at 18 months old and suffered for that.
What?
Yeah, I had
18 months old?
18 months old. I had contracted viral gastroenteritis, and then it led into irritable bowel syndrome. And it was just absolutely miserable. I know they treat that with what's called the BRAT diet now, but at the time, what we had was Dr. Rowe's rotational diet, which was invented by Dr. Albert Rowe. It was an elimination diet. The only problem is that it had carbohydrates in it. I wish they had known about carnivore, because it was a meat and a carbohydrate, and you would eat that for a minimum of 4 days. You ate the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it would be lamb and rice, and you'd eat that all day, every day for a minimum of 4 days to see how your digestive tract went. And then you'd switch over to something such as boiled potatoes and chicken. And so I was on that forever. I was skinny, but because of the carbohydrates, my gut was pooched out. So I was a skinny little kid with a gut.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately. I didn't.
And your poor parents probably were just doing what they thought was best.
Yeah, they did. They didn't have the information on carnivore. It was not there. It seems like Dr. Salisbury's work got buried. Yeah, it just got buried. If that had been out there, my parents could have just fed us the meat portion, and a lot of things would have been incredibly different.
Yeah. So what was your experience? I mean, how did you learn about carnivore?
I didn't really sort of learn about it. I had gotten to the point I had, I was diagnosed with at a young age. By the time my 8th birthday happened, I had migraines. I was having absent seizures, a few grand mal seizures, and I had also been diagnosed as bipolar type 1. And it was kind of traumatic. I was grateful at the time that I had sports as an outlet. I was able to play sports, and I excelled as an athlete, which was wonderful. To go through, at 14, I had an emergency appendectomy, and the surgeon discovered I had polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Poor baby girl.
Yeah, so that was actually quite interesting, to be a lean, fit 14-year-old athlete that obviously what we know now, I had insulin resistance.
Mm.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome, I had insulin resistance
Yeah.
at 14 as an athlete that was in shape. And that was kind of scary. After high school, of course, I wasn't playing sports, and I had started gaining some weight. I was doing some different jobs. I ended up working in food service, and so I had access to a lot of food. So I gained weight and ended up hypoglycemic. And right after I found out I was hypoglycemic, I also found out that I had a very little bit of cervical cancer. Luckily, the doctor that I had been in practice for over 30 years. He looked at me and he said, "It's a little bit. I can get it out, and you're probably not going to have chemo radiation. And I'm hoping you don't have to have a second procedure," which I did not. At
Thank
this time,
goodness.
I was on a low carb diet. I had obviously, when I found out I was hypoglycemic, I had a family history of all these health problems, heart disease, diabetes, everything like that. And I said, I don't like needles. I refuse to inject myself every day with insulin. I'm not going to be a diabetic. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
And so my uncle was actually kind of basically my inspiration at this point in time. He had diabetes, and he had a quadruple bypass and everything. And he had started this diet, and I didn't know exactly what he was doing. And he had come off of insulin. He was an insulin dependent diabetic and came off of insulin. And so I said, "What are you doing exactly?" He had talked about Atkins with me. I went to the library. First library did not have the Atkins book, but it did have the Sugar Busters book. So I started reading through the Sugar Busters book. And then I did find a library that had the Atkins book. He contacted my parents. He's my dad's brother, and told my dad, "Got to get me Dr. Bernstein's diabetes solution." And so I ended up getting, my dad ordered a copy of that. I guess it was Barnes and Noble. I don't know what it was. And so I ended up with a copy of that. And so I was kind of just starting a little bit with Atkins, and having had the digestive disorders, I was looking at what I could eat to stay under 20 grams of carbohydrates. And I was like, everything that's low carb, I can't digest this stuff. It's irritating my stomach and all this. So I actually ended up having a conversation with my uncle, and I said, "What all are you eating to stay under 20 grams of carbohydrates?" And at that point, he confessed to me, he says, "I actually can't even go over 10. If I go over 10, I go back on insulin."
Wow.
And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "So what are you basically eating?" And he said, "Breakfast is eggs and sausage, and lunch and some more meats, and then dinner is pretty much more meats. He'd eat a salad or something on occasion when they'd go out, just because it's cheaper to get a salad than a steak or something." A lot of times I was like, okay, so he's basically just eating meat. That's fascinating. Now, I kind of thought, and I was kind of looking at everything that I was eating, and I was like, I'm eating very small portions of stuff. What actual nutrition am I getting out of these?
Mm.
And then I thought back to elementary school. I went to a very diverse elementary school that was very culturally diverse. And so learning about different cultures and everything was very important, because we had so many different groups of people there from all backgrounds. And we had actually learned about the Inuit. And I
Mm.
remember hearing that there were different groups of people that just ate meat. And I remember as a child, when they started talking about that, all the usual questions popped up. They don't eat ice cream and cake and all this kind of stuff. And then one of the kids actually said, they don't have to eat vegetables. And I was like, oh boy, I don't like vegetables. If I never had to eat another vegetable again, can I come join one of these tribes? Will they adopt me somehow?
Yeah.
And now I kind of feel like I'm in one. And it's very exciting. And the fact that just being able to change my diet and eat things that I actually really love to eat. Trust me, I love steak. I love meat. I've always loved fatty meat. It's always been something I loved. Healed my body.
Mm.
That was just absolutely one of the, it's just still kind of mind boggling, even though it's been years of doing this kind of thing. It is still mind boggling that I can eat things that I love and enjoy and not be on handfuls of prescriptions.
Oh,
It really didn't do much. They sort of helped, but then they had all these side effects and all this stuff. You get insomnia, and then you were tired. You couldn't wake up in the morning if you did fall asleep, and it gave you brain fog and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't living. It was
yeah.
not living.
Yeah.
Now I'm not living, I'm thriving.
Aw.
I'm thriving.
So how long
And
have you been eating this way?
well, believe it or not, I'm the same age as Kelly Hogan. I'm 43.
I'm 43.
Hey, great. We're the last of the 70s babies.
I love it.
Yeah,
79.
all right. Yeah. I think Kelly and I are just a few weeks apart.
I'm February 10th of 79.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just within a few weeks of each other. That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. So my first experience when I got this diagnosis, I was 23. So I started in 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, so I actually have a long history. Now I did have the gap, as I explained on my Instagram page, where I started taking care of my grandmother. I had moved in with her, and she had dementia. She also had diabetes, and she had cancer, and she ended up with cancer the last year. And I was taking care of her through ovarian cancer, and that was really rough. So I had fallen off my diet, and I gained the weight back, and I'm sure I had other problems and had to start taking medication again for mental health and other things. And what happened after she passed, I found a problem. I went in for a surgery. It was supposed to be a simple procedure. 6 weeks after the surgery, the surgical site ruptured open.
Wow.
It was very scary. It ruptured open. We contacted my aunt. She's kind of my adopted aunt. She's been my mom's best friend since elementary school. And she's a nurse. And my mom said, where do we go? And she said, of course, what she says, because she's blunt and honest, she said, if she were my daughter, I'd take her too. And so I went over and got the new surgeon. He repeated the surgery and it ruptured open again.
What?
Yes. They ended up finding out that from the first surgery, I had contracted MRSA at the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
So there was MRSA in the wound. He was able to finally clear the MRSA out, but I wasn't healing. And they couldn't figure out what was going on at that point. And he was looking because of where the wound was and everything. And he thought it was kind of odd. So he started asking me some very detailed questions that the other one did not. And I finally just told him, I said, look, I have irritable bowel syndrome. This is the worst flare up I have ever had in my life. I've never experienced anything like this. I am sick and I'm miserable with it. And so he said, I'm going to send you down the hallway to a friend of mine that's a gastroenterologist. So I went and saw the gastroenterologist. They did an endoscopy and colonoscopy. And lo and behold, it was no longer irritable bowel syndrome. I had Crohn's disease.
Wow.
And that's what was causing what I needed the surgery for.
Got it.
So now I'm on bed rest because I have an open wound. I'm being pumped full of these crazy steroids to treat the Crohn's disease. And I'm just gaining weight because I'm eating. And that is one thing. Not everybody that has a digestive disorder is skinny.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find that out from the gastroenterologist because I was like, okay, I'm on steroids and I'm gaining weight. I had ballooned up at that point to 265 pounds. And I'm like,
And how tall are you?
I thought people with digestive disorders were skinny. And she says, no, not everybody.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
Wow, 260, 5'5". Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot of weight. That was a lot of weight. And I was just miserable. I wasn't healing. We were 18 months into this surgical process and all this, and I'm just tired. And I just had this moment, and and I always laugh because I have some interesting ancestry, but my 8th grade granduncle is Patrick Henry.
Oh, wow.
Give me liberty or give me death. And I kind of had that moment with myself. It was just kind of I'm not going to continue to live this way, and I'm not going to die this way. I'm going to do everything I can to find a cure for what I've got and to heal myself. And I just had that moment with myself. And it took me back to a quote that's always stuck with me, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I've always loved that quote, and I knew what it meant. It meant that you were not a victim of everything that happened to you. You were a survivor.
Yes.
That's where you fight. You fight for yourself and you move on. And so I started looking online, and I actually ran across a woman named Heather Van Voros. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And she had written the book, The IBS Diet. And she had suffered with irritable bowel syndrome her entire life. Her doctors were telling her it was in her head. And she said, it's not. Okay, I'm laying in the floor in my bathroom crying, basically, is what she was saying. And it's in my head. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And she started discussing in the book, and I ended up finding a copy of the book, and discussing that fiber was the enemy of the gut, especially if you have digestive disorders.
Not fiber. You need fiber.
Not fiber. I know we need all this fiber. You need all these whole grains and stuff, and then low fat. And yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's done wonders for society.
It's killing us.
And so I started with her diet, and it was kind of a little bit similar to Dr. Rowe's rotational diet. So it was somewhat low fat, and it had a lot of starches. So I started with that, and I was starting to feel better. My digestive tract was just really starting to feel better. But then I kind of looked at it and I went, okay, when I was about 80 pounds lighter, I was already hypoglycemic, and I'm probably already diabetic, and no offense to her. And I'm glad she has her diet out there, but I'm looking at it and going, this diet's kind of almost a recipe for diabetes. The last thing I want right now, because for all I know, I am diabetic because I haven't had any blood work done lately. So I don't know. So I was like, okay, well, what else doesn't have fiber in it? And I thought back, the meat, what I was doing.
Meat.
Now, I did start out lean, very lean, because one of the things she listed was that fats could irritate the digestive tract. So I started out lean, and then I kind of moved on and found out, okay, once it got going, I was good. Was able to wean off the steroids. and the digestive tract healed up, and lo and behold, the wound started healing.
Wow. So how
The
long
weight,
ago was that?
the weight was coming off. Oh, geez. Okay. Get some dates on this. That's been 10 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Now I've had some gaps, and I've had some other gaps because I tried some other things, but I've got at least 10 years carnivore, and probably another 3 that you would probably hyper carnivore-ish. You know, carnivore-ish. But I've got a total of 13 plus years carnivore, hyper carnivore. And now I know hyper carnivore is defined as 70% of the diet is from animal products, but mine was never below 98% as a hyper
Got it.
carnivore.
Got it.
But I'm a meat, salt, and water person. So because
Got
that's
it.
just what works for me.
So have you found now that you do well or better with fat?
Yes, I do. I actually enjoy a little bit of a higher fats. I don't go below 70% personally. It's just I rest better and everything. If I eat low fat, I don't even get full if it's too lean. And it's just like I'm just still sitting there eating, and then all of a sudden my stomach hurts because I'm just trying to put so much in there. It's like, okay, I need some fat. Give me a stick of butter. I don't,
Yeah. Yeah,
something,
absolutely.
something to fill me up.
Wow. So, what has your experience been like with the mental health, whenever you were eating, carbs and sugar and whenever you weren't?
Well, I had severe ups and downs. I was hospitalized a few times in my teens
Yeah.
and stuff with it, and it was just rough. It was a struggle. And I think one of the other things that kind of just really made me struggle was being diagnosed with all of these conditions at a young age. I knew what they were, and I knew they were lifelong conditions. And
Yeah.
so that's a little rough because you kind of feel kind of odd because
Mm-hmm.
yes, you could see me even with absence seizures. I would blank out, and I would just, you know, that kind of thing. There were some grand malls, but something like this, it's not like, I had a problem with my hand or something like it. It's not something you can physically see. So you
Yeah.
feel odd, and you don't know how to explain that to other children,
Yeah.
and they don't get it. And then you're put on all these medications, and the medications, they never worked. I felt like I was at the doctor at least once a month minimum, and they were changing it up, and it's like, I don't even know the amount of medications. I probably have a list like this of everything that I've probably taken everything there is,
Wow.
and it just never worked. And that was stressful, experiencing all that, and just not knowing what was happening to yourself as a child. And it's like, what am I feeling? What am I experiencing? Why am I experiencing this? Oh my gosh, I'm anxious. I have insomnia, and now, and then
My
I'm
body's not working.
depressed and stuff. And it's like, you need to get up and go to school. I'm like, I can't even get out of the bed.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly, I can't get out of the bed. I don't even want to get out of the bed. I just want to roll over and just die,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes.
And then the first time I went carnivore, I didn't, I started to notice because I was on some medications. It's like, okay, I'm a little bit drowsy here. Okay, I'm sleeping better, but why am I drowsy? So I talked with the doctor, and he said, what's happening? And I said, well, I'm sleeping better, but now I'm really tired during the day. And he said, why don't we see if we can just cut back on the sleep aid? And so we started that, and then it was taken away, and it was doing good and okay. And then some other things started changing, and it was just like, wow. And I was very excited. The only thing I do regret is that I did not have access to Thomas Seyfried's work on the ketogenic diet and cancer, because trust me, I would have not gone off my diet and I would have put my grandmother on it just to see, because she was at an age, she was older, she was in her 80s, and they flat out told her, we can't operate on you.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But it would have been nice to just try. So she was doing chemo and it was shrinking. It would have been nice to have had the information if I could have just at least put her on a ketogenic diet,
Yeah.
if nothing else. And I think she would have been flat out open to it. She is a Southern country girl, so meats and stuff they like. It's kind of like, it's funny. I've gone to restaurants and I've seen where it's a country restaurant and they're serving country greens, and I'm looking at it and it's like, that's not my grandmother's country greens. When her country greens were, you had some greens with ham.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was always bacon grease, ham, and everything.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, now, so you were able to discontinue all psych meds or some psych meds, or what are, like, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, what's your experience like now?
I have one that's a dual medication, and because I also have migraines. And it treats all three. It treats the epilepsy and everything. I'm just a little nervous about coming off of that because
I understand.
Drive every day, and even an absence seizure. If I have that behind the wheel of a vehicle, not only am I endangering myself, I'm endangering everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I'm not quite comfortable just wiping that one out.
I get it.
Right at the moment. I do have something to take for migraines. They're nothing like they were. My migraines were debilitating, and I don't know if it's part of the other underlying medical conditions I have. When I would get migraines, I would get neuropathy in my hands, my feet, inside my mouth and everything, and my cognitive function would shut down. I could not answer questions. I could not think of the answers to questions. I remember one instance in particular. I could not think of what my first name was. I could not answer the person asking me what my name was. And it was that bad. And now they still hurt, but I can sit here and say, yeah, hey, this is me. This is I'm having a migraine. This is what's going on. Can you help?
Yeah.
If I needed it. So I do have something for that as well. But like I said, I'm on a very low dose of the one medication, and I'm not really even on a therapeutic level. As far as my blood work is showing, it's not even really a therapeutic level for anything. So it's not really treating anything.
Got it. And so what do you eat now on a regular basis?
I really love steaks.
Yes. Same.
I love ribeyes. Those are my
Yes.
favorites. The chuck roast.
Yes.
Those are some of my favorites. Beef brisket.
Yes.
I could get in trouble with the beef brisket though, because I love the fat. And when I buy the ones that are like from Costco or Sam's Club or something like that, and they've got that big layer of fat on it, especially if I'm having it with my parents or something, because my dad's still eating low fat, I'll trim the fat off the top of the piece that I'm cutting for him. I just start eating it, and I can end up just eating this pile of fat like this, and then I'll have a piece of meat like this big.
I'm the same way.
So, I do that. Ground beef. I do ground beef. And a lot of times, one of those, I do have half a cow right now.
That'll help.
In my freezer.
That's great.
I have friends that own a cattle farm. It's a private cattle farm. They're not commercial in any way, shape, or form. But they sell to friends. They'll split one with you, or if you have somebody else that you're willing to split with, they'll let you have the whole, or if you have room for the whole, whatever.
That's great.
So I have that, but sometimes my favorite stores to shop at, they buy from locally sourced farms, but they have them cut to a particular weight, so all the steaks for a certain size. And so I need a little extra, so I'll just cook some ground beef and leave it in the refrigerator, and then just scoop some out and warm it up, whatever extra else I need, and eat that in addition to the steak, because it just makes it easier. Or I'll just cook two, especially if they're on sale, because I've gotten some really great deals
That's awesome. That's
on the
awesome.
steak.
So 10, 13 years experience eating this way. I can probably safely say you're not going to change anytime soon.
No, it's what makes me feel good. And anytime I've gone off, I start having problems. Obviously, I ended up with Crohn's disease. That was not a good thing. Nope.
No, that's terrifying.
Had I not gone off. But the interesting thing that I was really excited about was that going back on it about a year later, I had my first biopsy, and the doctor said, "It looks good." And he said, "I want you to come
Good.
back in about 6 months for another one." I'm like, "Another colonoscopy?" 6 months later, I'm like, "I don't like colonoscopies." So I went back for the next one, and I came into the office, and he looks at me and he says, "You don't have Crohn's disease anymore."
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" He said, "The biopsies are negative. There's no visible evidence. You're not on the steroids anymore. You're not being treated for Crohn's disease, and nothing is showing you have it anymore." And he was kind of shocked himself. I could even just see, because doctors are normally, I have an uncle that's a doctor, and they can just look at you just very casually and say, "You have cancer," you know.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of, you could see his mind was going, and it's kind of like he couldn't believe he was saying that. And he said, "I guess we're discharging you as a patient. I'd like to do a follow-up every few years, just because you have had this, and you follow-up colonoscopy." And he said, the physician's assistant was in there with me. And he said, I'll have her get the paperwork for you." And she comes back in, and I had brought in, because I was a little nervous, because he really hadn't given me a lot of information from the previous colonoscopy. So I brought in a copy of her diet. I was kind of a little worried about saying how extreme mine was. So I kind of just brought it in to explain the whole fiber thing or whatever. And she comes back in the room with my paperwork, the physician's assistant, and said, "Can I have a copy of that diet?"
Wow.
And I said, "Here, just take the paper." And she said, "I know what you're doing. Yes, it's a little bit extreme." She said, "But if we can at least get people started on this no fiber thing,
Yeah.
I'm all for it."
Wow. That is
Yeah.
so incredible. And just to have
Well,
medical professionals, acknowledge that there's something here. And that's what I say all the time. Like, something is happening. You don't get over Crohn's disease. You don't get over bipolar disorder.
no,
You just don't get over that.
no. And I had, obviously, by the time I had gotten diagnosed with the Crohn's disease, I had probably, they said I'd probably, because of how bad my symptoms were, and looking back on the time frame of my symptoms, I had probably already had it for at least 2 years at that point.
Wow.
So it was happening while I was still treating my grandmother, and how I was getting through that, I don't know, because that is just, I'm not trying to dismiss irritable bowel syndrome in any way, shape, or form, but I'd rather have irritable bowel syndrome than Crohn's disease, because that was just horrendous. just, oh my gosh. You don't even want to eat because you just don't want anything in your body that's going to go any direction.
Exactly. And I've heard that so much, that people are just afraid to eat because they just don't know what they're going to react to.
Right.
And and I think that the majority of society doesn't know that you can eat just meat,
Yes.
that you can thrive and you can survive and heal things. And this is just amazing. I'm so thankful that you're coming out and telling people your story now.
Yeah.
And I know that you're on Instagram. What's your handle on Instagram?
Allie Carnivore.
Allie Carnivore.
Yeah.
ALLIE.
Uh-huh.
Carnivore. Great.
Yeah.
So that people can follow your story. That's amazing. And and I think that you're doing an interview coming up, you said, with Brett Lloyd.
Yeah, we're trying to get that scheduled. He's got some new adventures in his life, so we're trying to work it in.
Awesome.
Very excited
Well,
for him.
keep sharing your story, and thank you so much for coming here and blessing us with your story. I'm just so excited to hear of another situation where meat has healed.
Yeah, we have to keep sharing it. It was kind of a funny thing. I recently started this page on Instagram. I had gone to a meetup 3 years ago or so and met Kelly Hogan, and we got to chatting about our story, and she said, "You need to blog about this. You need to tell your story." And it took 3 years, and then I didn't actually get the post up till she decided to challenge people that week. And I was like, you know what? Okay, Kelly, I'll do it.
That's
I'll
great.
do it. I got it up and I tagged her in, and she's like,
that's awesome. Yeah, I did an Instagram live with her a couple weeks ago, and it was the first time I ever talked to her. And she's just like, I just feel like we just picked up where we left off. Like we've always been friends or something. Like she's just so approachable and easy to talk to.
oh yeah, she's a lot of fun, and we got along too, because the meetup that I went to that I met her was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and my grandmother's family is from about an hour and a half away from there in North Carolina. So I went down, we went to the meetup, and then I went and visited with some of my relatives and stuff. But Kelly's from North Carolina, my family's from North Carolina, and when you get Southern women together,
that's great. That's great. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Allie. And you are welcome to join anytime. We just get together every Saturday and we talk about meat. We have people who come in and share their victories, and we have people who come in and share their struggles and their questions.
and I will say I did have some struggles, because especially when I was taking care of my grandmother, I had fallen off because I had started just eating stuff that I was making for her because that's what she wanted to eat and she was going with it. And I can't even tell you the number of times that I tried to get back on it. And I failed. And it wasn't like, okay, I did it for a week or so and then I fell off. It was, I tried to start it that morning, and by the end of the day, it was done.
Really? So tell me about that. How did you, because I have a lot of people that I know that are listening to this and are possibly in this meeting, that they know that this is the way, but they can't do it. They start out that morning and then by the afternoon they're, drinking soda and donuts and pizza. So how did you break that addiction?
Yeah, it was just a struggle, and stressors were getting to me, and then it was just there, and there was stuff there. There was stuff in the house, and I liked the same things that my grandmother liked. Yes, it was diet soda, but diet soda is probably worse for you than regular soda, to be honest with what they put in it. And there was stuff in the house, and a lot of times having some of that stuff in the house is not good, or having access to it. And then finally, and I got to the point with the Crohn's disease and stuff. I'm like, I have to do this to save my life.
Yeah.
And
you hit the bottom.
Yeah. And I'd hit bottom with other things before, but there was always like, here's the prescription to get you out of it. And one of my doctors actually looked at me and he said, the way that you were raised and being put on medication at such a young age, he said, I cannot believe that you're not an alcoholic or drug addict, because you were literally taught there's a pill for everything.
Yeah.
And so, I thank God I'm not, because I hate swallowing pills. I hate it. I would rather eat meat. And to me, honestly, if you have to think about it from a child's perspective, if that had been available to me and the doctors had come to me and said, all right, here's the option. You can learn how to swallow all these pills that may work and may make you feel a little weird as well. Or you can have this nice plate of eggs and bacon instead, and then you can just eat this. I mean, I would have chosen the bacon and the eggs and the pork chops or whatever over all these pills that just didn't really help and made you feel weird and had side effects to them. But yeah, you kind of have to get to that point, and you have to kind of really stay on it long enough, and just at least give it 2 weeks to just really feel the benefits. And one of the other things that just really hit me was I ended up having the surgery just basically right after my grandmother had passed. And thinking back on that, I ended up not being able to take care of myself. I was on bed rest. I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't prepare my own foods. I had chopped all my hair off short because I was struggling taking a shower, because just standing, you had to pack covers over this wound to make sure nothing got into it, because it was an open wound that was gushing, bodily fluids. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. But thinking back, my whole thought was, oh my gosh, I went off this diet. This diet was working for mental health and everything else. And by going off this diet, I ended up developing Crohn's disease. And at this point, I can't take care of myself. Thought to myself, what if my grandmother hadn't gotten cancer and passed away? I said, I can't take care of myself. I wouldn't have been able to take care of her. What good would I have been to her? And so one thing that, I always tell people, I say, do this for yourself and take care of yourself. And really and truly, when you eat the diet and you take care of yourself and you become the optimal version of you, then you can be the best person that you can be for all those people in your life that you care about. If you're not at your top physically and mentally, there's no way that you can be the best you can be for all the people that you want to take care of. And that's
so true. Absolutely. And I think that so many times, as caregivers, we don't think about that. We just think, I got to do for them. But you have to take care of yourself first so that you can be all that you can be for them.
Yeah. And I'm not saying neglect anybody or anything, but if there's some things in your life you can let slide just a little bit. Okay. If the house gets a little cluttery, okay. Just keep it clean. You don't want to be living in dirt.
Yeah.
But just let a few things slide if you need to get this going. I have a little burn on my hand. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Angela. Oh, no problem. Angela raised her hand. Angela, did you have a question for Allie?
Yeah, I had asked in the chat room.
Okay.
What was the question? Oh, how long after she was carnivore did the Crohn's disease go away?
I got the first negative biopsy was about a year later.
So a year of eating animal meat and animal fat.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Being on it, I was able to start weaning off the steroids a month onto it.
Okay.
So that was my experience with it, and then I was able to slowly, come off of them, and then also, of course, the weight started dropping, and when inflammation starts going down in your body, everything else starts working because I dropped weight rapidly with it. The first time I ever did carnivore, it took, even though I was at a lower weight, it took 2.5 years to really get my weight down to where I was happy with it. And the second time I went on, it's like my body remembered, and I usually don't tell people that, but my weight just fell off. I lost about 90 pounds in 4.5 months.
Wow.
So it was unbelievably crazy because it's like my body just went, yeah, I remember this, and it did it. But I had some learning along the way because when I was originally doing carnivore, I wasn't really doing it right. It's like, okay, I got all this lunch meat and stuff. Okay. I didn't know what I was doing. And believe it or not, I didn't even really know. I knew about Inuits and people like that, but I didn't figure they were on social media because of where they lived. So I didn't know who to contact. I didn't know there were already all these groups out with people like Charles Washington and all these other people, and that Kelly Hogan was in, and the bear, of course, Stanley. I loved reading his stuff. I would have loved to have been able to find these people. I actually didn't find out there were carnivore communities. I was following all these keto doctors and stuff, and then Dr. Ken Berry decided he was going to go carnivore, and I was listening to it, and I was like, he's doing what? I knew what a carnivore was, and then he started describing it, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. There's people in regular societies that are doing this? Hold on a second. And that's how I ended up running into finding my friend who introduced me to Kelly Hogan for the first time. She had created her own group, and because I had started reading through the comments on this broadcast that Dr. Barry and Nisha were doing, and she posted a link to the group. I clicked over there, and there were already over 600 people in this group, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And so I joined the group, and then I started searching, and I was like, all these carnivore groups started popping up, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Where have these been? Where have these people been? And I just kind of I just felt like I found my home. I found my tribe kind of thing. It was quite interesting. And now the funny thing is that group started out with, when I first joined, there was like 600 some people. Now there's 10,000 people in the group, and it's just remarkable. And I just love it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you found us.
Yeah. I was like, I just felt like I was weird. I thought my uncle and I were doing it, and the Inuits were doing it. And it was just, excuse me, one of those things. But it's like, okay, no, there's people that are in just normal, regular, civilized areas that are doing the same thing. Okay, we're not weird. Well, maybe
Allie,
we are, but we're not that weird.
Yeah. Allie, can you speak to how you were able to stop drinking the diet soda, and how you were able to stop eating the sugar and the carbs when you were so addicted?
Yeah.
How do you even go 2 weeks whenever you can't go half a day?
Right.
Well, when you start to really, okay, I'm a nerd. I was an athlete, but I'm a nerd too. Okay. And so I love research. I love studying. I've always, I did share with somebody intelligence runs in my family. I'm actually related to Isaac Newton. Okay.
Awesome.
So research, and I've read medical studies, I've read all kinds of things and just researched it to death. And when you actually look at the labels on things and you see what's in it, and then you go find out what these things do to your body, and that these things cause cravings and all kinds of stuff. Because when I did it once before, like when I first started and I drank a diet soda, I was, why am I hungry? Okay, well, it's got stevia in it, but stevia is maltodextrin. That's worse than eating sugar. That spikes on the glycemic index. That's what, like 126, and table sugar is somewhere around 65. It's double table sugar. You might as well drink a regular soda, because that's just going to make you hungrier. It's like, okay, well, this is bad. And if it's spiking that, then it's doing that in my body, and that's not good as far as diabetes goes, or insulin resistance, or hypoglycemia. This is bad. I've got to get away from this. That's a poison. And that's kind of just how I started looking at things. That is a poison to my body.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So you said stevia is maltodextrin?
Some stevia has maltodextrin in it. I mean, not stevia. Sorry, Splenda.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Splenda.
Stevia was good. Okay.
Yeah, there are some stevias that have maltodextrin in it too. You've got to watch those.
And stevia does cause cravings.
Yes, stevia causes cravings. Anything that's sweet can make you crave sweets. They actually did a study where they actually had people just rinse their mouth. I forget, I think it was for 1 minute with it was some sort of sweetener. I think it was almost like that drink that they give you for the glucose test. If you're going to take a glucose test, just rinse their mouth with it and spit it out. They didn't even swallow it.
Mm-hmm.
And it spiked their blood sugar.
Wow.
Yes, they did not even consume it. They just tasted it. And some people are even, I'm what's known as a super taster. There's actually ways that you can have if you're really bored and you want to go have this done, you can have a test done, find out if you're a super taster, and you also typically have a very strong sense of smell too, which unfortunately certain smells trigger my migraines. So that's not fun. But smells can even trigger people. Just smelling. You can walk by a bakery, and that's why you get hungry. You're smelling the sweetness, you're smelling the food, and it's triggering the response in your brain that oh my gosh, that tastes good. I got to have that. And so a lot of times it's even smells, which that's something that a lot of people run into when they're doing it on their own and they have other people in their home. They'll start, okay, well, I'm making this for so-and-so, and then they're smelling it. Maybe they're making cookies or something for their children or something, and they're, oh my gosh, okay, I'll have a cookie. And then one cookie leads to eating the whole batch at some point, and then their children don't get the cookies. But just even stuff like that will trigger, because it's a natural response that you have in your brain, that your body's sending the signals to your brain, and it's bad. It's bad. So smells and stuff can do that. And one of the things, and that's why it's important a lot of times to be prepared, especially if you're going somewhere where you know that there's going to be food or whatever that's going to trigger you. Eat something before you go that you know is a safe food, even if they're providing a meal. If you're going somewhere where it's potluck or whatever, take a meal with you. Do it. Take it. Trust me, you will be the most popular person there if you take a carnivore dish. I guarantee you, I had several events, and I've taken, I went ahead and spent the money because it was a very special event. When you walk in with 15 plus pounds of beef brisket, oh yes, everybody wants to be your friend.
That's great. That's great. Well, Allie, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story. Angela, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
And please, come back, keep us updated on how
Yeah.
you're doing. Because this is just amazing that somebody can sustain for this long, on just eating animal meat and animal fat. And it just goes to show you that, there are people like us out there who
Yes.
thrive on animal meat and animal fat.
Yeah, and the most important thing is just read what's in the ingredients list and look it up and see what it does. If nothing else, look at it on the glycemic index. Just look at it and do your research. That's what I've always done. Do your research. And typically what I tell people is if it has an ingredients list in it, it's not good for you.
Probably not. Probably not. I think that would be a great challenge, just to eat things that don't have an ingredient list.
Yeah, they're in the store. There's beef, chicken, fish. It's all there. Eggs. They don't have an
Yep.
ingredients list.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, we are almost out of time, but thank you guys so much for coming. I always love these meetings, and Allie, you have blessed us so much with your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a great Saturday, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the group. There is always so much beauty in being transparent and in really recognizing that we're all not alone on this journey. And so if you want to, feel free to join the Saturday support groups. They're every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you need more individualized care, then reach out to me and email me at innerclaritysystem@gmail.com. And I would love to walk through and show you what it looks like to work with me one-on-one.